I had this kind of aha awareness, moderately convicting, but like sometimes I like to show off when I'm being a good Christian. And I will post a show off Christian deep thought or show off Christian service day or show off this or that, waiting for the affirmation from social media world to both affirm what a good Christian I'm being and to feed my ego drought of, man, I haven't gotten a hit. I haven't gotten that dopamine in a while.
You just heard the voice of Reverend Doug Meyer talking about the question, what does authentic faith look like? Welcome to the Life Plus God podcast. I'm your host, Alyssa Robinson, and I can't think of a better pastor to have this conversation with than Pastor Doug Meyer because when I think of authentic faith and genuine, just like putting it all out there, being vulnerable, you're one of the people I think of.
Well, thank you.
And so a few months ago, I put out, just a big fishing net to all the pastors with a list of questions for the podcast to say, hey, which one of these would be interested? And I secretly had my fingers crossed that you would choose this question, and you did.
I thought maybe you were going to say, you were the only one I gave that question to.
Yeah, I was like, here, you can pick from this one question.
From this right here.
So thank you so much, Doug, for talking about authentic faith and coming back on the Life Plus God podcast.
Heck yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about what we mean by authentic.
Okay.
So how can you tell the difference between authentic and inauthentic faith? How are we defining this?
Gosh, you know what? Can we first explore just the word authentic without the attachment of faith?
Yeah.
I guess I've had these questions now for a couple of weeks, and I too am excited about it because it's a lot of different things, but basically, in my opinion, it is when you are your realest real. It is when you or I or a person functions without pretense, without the need to perform or to show, to gain affirmation by our performance. So, I think we can come and go. I think we can wear it and not wear it. I know I certainly have. I think it grows with age sometimes, or little kids can be super authentic, and then somehow we influence it away from people. But so then attach the word authentic faith, and I think it's all of that. It's when I live my most simple faith without consciousness of consequence, without, sometimes there are some people who live their faith as if it's like an audition for way to go. God's looking down going, all right, you got to pass.
Did you get a gold star?
You get a gold star. Or if, man, you got hit by a truck today, you're getting in. And in where I'm at in my season of my life right now, I don't think that, for me, that would be inauthentic to take faith teachings and to say, oh, here's what it's all about, and to go about living that way, because it would be a lot of inconsistency. I would feel kind of like, what's that popular phrase right now? Imposter syndrome. I would feel like, that's not really me.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, like what you mentioned about like kids naturally are authentic, and then we kind of rip that away from them over time and say, no, you have to behave this way, you have to react this way, whatever it may be. And so like I was thinking about authenticity requires work, but it's we always talk about, the word that scares people, deconstruction. It's almost like deconstructing back to the innocence of childhood, where you felt like you could just be your full self wherever you went, and not have to think about how you're being perceived, not having developed an ego, like all of these things. And so maybe that's what authentic faith is just getting back to that childlike state, but while also like being able to hold the tension and gray areas of the world that children haven't yet developed. So it's like both and.
Maybe it's it's all of that, but without the naivete.
Right.
If that's such a thing. If you, because I think, and that's the sweetness of a child's authenticness, is they're naive to necessarily, not every kid, unfortunately, but the hardships or the pain or the this or the that. And so then we put that mantle on them. And then after a while, if you get brave enough, you begin shedding those and just kind of saying the blank with it, It takes a lot of us a long time to be willing to take off all the different, inauthentic things that we put on ourselves.
So if we're looking at it through the lens of faith, what do you think is the difference between authentic and inauthentic faith?
I think for me, inauthentic would be that I was compelled to live a way to earn, to receive, to be made worthy. And that it was only because of those things I did or said or, showed pictures of me on a mission trip or whatever it was, that somewhere there was a great master in the sky checking, oh, he's being real today. Whereas I think that, I think that no matter what, I'm a beloved child of God. No matter what. All right. So if that's my base, then as I begin living forward, there's going to be some days that I am both a beloved child of God and a Christian screw up. or just I'm human, And so trying to live in the midst of that, like I think it's easy, and I think I'll just use myself as like one of the questions you ask about is, and I'm not meaning to jump ahead, but I think it will feed into this, is, so when are you the most, do you remember being inauthentic?
Have you caught yourself?
Yeah. I had this kind of aha awareness, moderately convicting, but like sometimes I like to show off when I'm being a good Christian. And I will post a show-off Christian deep thought or show-off Christian service day or show off this or that, waiting for the affirmation from social media world to both affirm what a good Christian I'm being and to feed my ego drought of, man, I haven't gotten a hit. I haven't gotten that dopamine in a while of somebody else telling me you're good and you're okay.
I had to think about that just today during our staff meeting, because I think that it's when I know I'm inauthentic is when I'm trying to show off and I'm being showy. And so when we have a staff meeting, as part of it, we always talk about, okay, what were moments in the past couple of weeks that you've seen us living out our mission in some way. And there are so many times that I'm about to share and I'm like, wait a second. And am I sharing this because I truly felt like it led into our mission? Or am I sharing this because I want to pat myself on the back and say, look what I did, you know? Yeah. And, I had this. And this morning I shared, and I had to stop and I hesitated for a really long time of like, am I sharing this because it's really meaningful and I felt like it fed into our mission, or because I want to show off that I got a new volunteer, that sort of thing. And I decided, no, this really is something that it has uplifted me in the last couple of weeks. But I had to stop and do that checks and balances within myself, because there have been so many times that after I've shared something, I thought, why did I just share that? That was just basically all I said is, aren't I so great?
Aren't I cool?
Yeah. Yeah. And I do that all the time. Yeah. And it's embarrassing. Like when I catch myself doing it, it's embarrassing because I'm like, oh, how old am I? When am I going to grow up?
Our little joke at our house is when I'm not super aware that Wendy does this that much, but I will say, I'll rattle off something I did. And at the end, out of kind of a little hint of self-awareness, I'll go, and I would like my sticker now.
Yeah. And now I need you to tell me that I did a good job.
Everything I just said, that was so good. You need to both listen to, affirm, give me a sticker, take me out for an ice cream or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that goes, I mean, just that loop of like, and here again, this is going to sound borderline arrogant assy. Like, I think that, I think there is a line or a journey or a mountain, something like, and I think the church feeds this. When people are struggling to try to figure out their way on this journey of faith, that we sometimes promote involvement as a sign of growth. Or we, if you could do this or you do that, we set these markers. And I think that kind of feeds to a little bit of the performance faith. Mm-hmm. The more I go and do and show up and show off, look, everybody, are you, kind of like, is it little kids? Who is it that says, can you see me now? Can you see me now? Or, the phone commercial, can you hear me now? But I think we kind of do that. I think we set people up to be, I'm going to claim that phrase, performance Christians. I like that phrase.
We're all just children running around in adult bodies.
Absolutely.
Like wanting accolades and people to pay attention to us and look at me, look what I can do, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that a church can be a microcosm of that mentality because it is people who are all coming together genuinely. I truly believe that as a church, we are trying to grow closer to Christ and to be more Christ-like in everything that we're doing, and our humanity gets in the way. All the time. And so when that ego starts to come in and you want the accolades and the validation and all of this stuff, it gets in the way. But I do think there's good at the root of it. Like we're just trying to get a little bit better, but it can be such a turnoff to people when they come into a church. Like for me, that performative Christianity is so obvious, and it kind of like turns my stomach when I see it, and I makes me want to roll my eyes and just walk away, I know I've done it. I know I've done it a million times.
I think those of us who kind of work behind the curtain a lot, we see it, yet we do it. But we're the first to detect it in another church. And, but then at times while we're detecting it, we're like, oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. Look at that light show.
Look at that.
I'm going to do that.
That's
how much does that cost?
Yeah. How much? Yeah. Can a volunteer do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. We do like church toy envy or something like, oh, I want to get in on that, which is just, I think part of it is just this crazy culture we live in that, we, in a success-driven culture, are always about one-upping and gaining and performing and all of that, which I think are kind of the counterbalance to, or at least they really make true authenticity tough.
So if we're talking about authentic faith specifically, what are some of the qualities that stand out to you of someone who's living out their faith authentically? I feel like we've touched on what inauthentic looks like. Yeah. But how do you recognize the authentic faith?
I think they wouldn't tell you about it. I think they would just be about that phrase that we use.
Don't talk about it, be about it.
Oh, that's a good phrase. Yeah. No, I was going to use the phrase, doing the next right thing. I think that they would just naturally be the things that Jesus said to be. Loving, caring, kind, sharing, so forth and so on. But then over here, there would be a pretty high dose of honesty and vulnerability and even just self-acknowledgement of, man, I really wish I could have done better on that. Mm-hmm. I was so judgmental when that homeless guy walked by. I locked my car doors or whatever was the moment. I want to believe that there are a ton of people who are doing that, who are living authentically, who don't get any press, who don't make it on a video and don't, do a podcast, and are just about
shots fired.
Who are just out there doing it. Because even as I've wrestled with that, because the thought of saying, how are they doing it, seems evaluative. It seems like you and I have this, and we do for the moment of this conversation, the privilege of judging.
Yeah.
How are they doing? Well, today they did the best they could.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? That was great.
And everybody has a bad day. I've had quite a few bad days where you've caught me in a bad moment and my temper flared and all of that. But it's like, what I come back to all the time, which I think I kind of dismissed it as a kid, but as I've gotten older, I really, really cling to those fruits of the Spirit. Of like, this is because Jesus basically says, this is how you will know my followers is by the fruits they bear. Yep. And the fruits are love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And so if you see someone exhibiting all of these things, you're like, oh man, that's legit. That's the real of this person living an authentic faith. But like when you see, a lot of preachers we've seen do not have self-control. No. We've seen a lot of people who are really struggling with these fruits of the Spirit. And it kind of makes me wonder, like, is this really authentic, or are you enjoying the showmanship of it all? But that's, again, going to a judgmental place. I should just focus on myself, I guess.
No, let's judge other people. But even in the midst of that, I just, one of the things, like when I get kind of just down on myself, I try to acknowledge that phrase that I stumbled across a couple of years ago. Two things, can be true at the same time. I can have a bad day and still be a beloved child of God. Those can coexist. I can be an addict and be a beloved child of God. I can be in prison and be a beloved child of God. That one doesn't cancel out, or void the other. I think maybe it's just this sense of maybe genuineness and authenticness comes with that honesty that says, man, I really kind of effed it up today. I wasn't very consistent in those fruits of the Spirit, or I was, I was the counterbalance of all those. And there's a moment of consciousness that says, let's see if we can't do better tomorrow. Yeah. And then try to live in a peacefulness about that rather than a whole bunch of shame and guilt and crap. Yeah.
I think that a key to that is having someone who's willing to keep you in check.
Yeah.
We hate the word accountability, but I think that like to live authentically, you have to have that person, whether it be your partner, a best friend, like just someone who's willing to say, hey, I think maybe you were the problem in that scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We do this little thing at our house where, we're both equally at fault about this. But I will share a story where I will portray myself, of course, as the victim. And the world was out to get me in this horrible thing, boo-hoo, boo-hoo. And Wendy will smile and go, and it's just kind of in the look on her face and the smile that says, to your point, maybe, could this really... There's always this little game we play, like hesitating to say it out loud. Hey, just on the off chance, is there any way that you were the problem? And usually by the time we get to that point, because we've so kind of dramatized it now, we're like, just shut up. Don't even say it. Yes, I know you're probably right. Leave me alone.
See, that's what I annoy Jacob so badly, like whenever because he has a temper, and not usually towards me, usually directed at other people and venting to me about it. And I'll throw out like, well, what would Jesus say about it? And he's like, would you shut up about Jesus? We all know what Jesus would do.
He wasn't at the meeting. He doesn't know.
Jesus wasn't there.
Yeah. No, but I think you're right. Like, I think if you can do life with just a couple of folks who, just in the flow of the way you do life, will kind of give you a check, right? And go, well, listen, that sounds really interesting. I don't know. Sounds like you were kind of jacked up that day, or something. And it doesn't even have to be, okay, I'm here for my accountability check-in. It could just happen in the flow of a conversation over a glass of wine or something that just says, oh, because we do, I think, we want, Wendy calls it a fan club. Wendy says at times, I don't want you to criticize me. I want you to be on my side. And I get that. And we all do to a degree. And so to evolve in a friendship or relationship where you can go, hey, I'm in your fan club, but you really jacked that one up today. You know, that's a gift to have a friend or somebody that can do that for you. That really is.
Yeah. Well, what about authentic faith in terms of questioning and doubting and all of this stuff that we're also afraid to talk about? Like, where does authenticity come into
it's
play?
In the smack dab middle of it all.
Because a lot of us are taught that it's wrong to question God and it's wrong to doubt, and that means that there's a weakness in your faith.
Somehow you're less than. You're not as strong a believer, or all of those components should be on the list of what you're trying to eradicate out. Then I'm never going to achieve whatever it is I'm going for, because I think too that authenticness, like. Part of my nature in being authentic is being sometimes a critical thinker and a wonderer or a wanderer or a doubter. And to me, I can't imagine me not with that. Just like breathing. I can't imagine not having this wondering mind that's, whoever it is that's speaking, teaching, preaching, whatever. And almost always I'll go, are you sure about that? Mm-hmm. What do we know about that? What? Huh? Especially as it's kind of been like, I don't know, over or dumbed down in a way. And we kind of here's what triggers me is when somebody says it's so absolute. Mm-hmm. That makes it like.
That makes me want to disagree with them.
Absolutely. I want to.
Oh, you want to fight?
I want to punch them in the throat.
Yeah.
And just say, no, don't. And I want to say to like church people or I probably won't ever be able to preach this, but whenever somebody says they know for sure, you should get up and leave the room. Mm-hmm. No, they don't. No, they don't. And but we know, and within our community, there are many people in pulpits who speak with such authority that there is, what's the word? It's just like, because they say it is so.
Yeah. I think they do that because people crave certainty. Mm-hmm. Because the world is scary, let's face it. Like, we are in an uncertain world where you don't know what's going to happen from one day to the next. You're not going to be able to guess what the headlines are next week. Like, it's just wild all the time. And we want to know. We want to have some certainty and know what's going to happen. Yeah. And there are some pastors who are like, "Yeah, I can give you that."
Yeah, no, I agree. Like and sometimes I do work. I do funerals, and there are people. There is I'm going to call it a product line that assures people that that was all a part of God's will for your loved one. That whether it was a tragedy or their time had come or whatever BS, and it repels me, but I understand that it offers some people some comfort guardrails. Or there's even this line of poems about God and children at children's funerals needing another flower in his garden, and I remember the very first time I read that, I was like, I don't want that to be my God. Mm-hmm. I'm not down with that. And people of that vein will come back with things like, "Well, everything's in God's will, and everything that don't you believe that?" I'm like, man, I don't. No, probably not today. Not right now. It wasn't God's will for that 6-year-old to get hit by a car that careened out of the road. No, come on, that's BS.
Yeah, and I think that part of that authenticity is, it feels arrogant to claim that you have the answers or that you know exactly. Like, how can anyone claim they know exactly how God works, you know? And to say with certainty that something was a part of God's plan.
I think that there are preachers who get caught up in the moment and kind of like almost like a politician. They get so swept up in the adrenaline of it. They do overpromise. and they just in the moment are declaring and making such a strong statement.
And there's no fact checking.
There's
not possible. There's no fact checking in faith.
I wish there was fact checking across the screen on the bottom and going, yeah, no, that's no. But if you live in a culture like we do and work in, there are sometimes authoritative statements made more out of emotion than fact. And then there's a whiplash of the people who, yes, amen, oh, yes. And then the naysayers are discounted or discarded.
Yeah.
And
well, it's about a memorable message that leaves an impact. And hyperbole works. I mean, Jesus used hyperbole, to get the message
I get
across.
It. You could not. I don't know. Like, maybe I'll do this when I retire. Like, start a church where the teaching pastor just says, I'm not really sure about this, and just contemplates and puts this out here for consideration. I think that a whole lot of people who are just like, oh, that's cool and really chill would be interested in it. Mm-hmm. But people who want certainty, they wouldn't be back the next Sunday.
No, because it wouldn't feel settled. It would.
No, and the people who go to church
open.
saying, "Oh, I want to be fed."
Yeah,
that feels like I don't know, dessert. Not even dessert.
But I think we're getting into judgmental territory again.
All right.
we tend to meander into there.
We won't.
Because what I was trying to say earlier that I didn't get to because I jumped straight to judging other people is I think also part of authentic faith is recognizing my own beliefs, being able to ask questions and whatever I hold true. And then also recognizing that other people don't have to believe the exact same way I do and what is authentic to me, because I think that you and I are very similar in the way that we approach our faith is like, I ask a lot of questions. Mm-hmm. I have a lot of doubt. I apply my critical thinking skills to scripture, like all of this stuff that makes, and that energizes me and it makes me want to learn more about God. And there are other people who that it's the exact opposite for them. And if they went down that path that I go down, they would veer off the path entirely, not want to have anything to do with faith. It feels like homework. It feels boring. It's
I don't
tedious,
even know what I believe anymore.
And that's not wrong of them to not want to approach faith the same way I do, because if they tried to do that, that would be inauthentic to them and the way that they have a relationship with God. And so I don't know.
I think people should do things the way we do them.
Everybody needs the.
We're coming out with the Doug and Alyssa book, and then the other side will say the Alyssa and Doug book.
Instead of dogma, it'll be Dougma.
Dougma. I like
trademark. So, we talked a little bit about the performative Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we all feel the pressure to look like a good Christian, and it can lead us to focus more on appearances than on the heart. How do you guide people away from performance and toward authenticity? Like, do you call people out when you see performative acts?
Only if it's my wife. No, I don't. No, I don't know. No, I don't. And I think I probably just say, "Oh, bless their hearts." I try not to be around people like that a whole lot. I think that, as we acknowledged earlier, there is a fine line in what we do, both as people trying to be Christian and then working for the church. Mm-hmm. Of that, it's kind of this jiggly line that I think sometimes we're more of one and less of the other. I was thinking a minute ago when you were saying that about the Paul's that overused text about love is this and love is that, and because I think that like performative Christianity is a lot like the clanging cymbal. Mm-hmm. Look at me, versus just go out and do it. Just go to the school and read to a kid. You don't need a picture on the internet. You don't need to wear the T-shirt and all that. Yeah. Your mom used to say this thing every now and then about would you go on a mission trip if you couldn't post your pictures?
Yeah. Well, I know that that's something that she had to like really examine about herself, because my mom has talked openly about how performative Christianity is a real struggle for her. That she wanted people to see how good she was and that she was the best kind of Christian.
Yeah.
And look at me, I'm over in Mexico and Africa, and look at me with the pictures of people.
Oh my gosh, I got so
and
dirty for Jesus today.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think like, I'm trying to think, I had a thought. Where'd it go? Sometimes pastors particularly will get called upon in family settings or others to do the prayer. As if nobody else can, like somebody told me once before, oh, y'all are professionally trained prayers. And I know that once or twice I have really prayed it up. Mm-hmm. And my favorite, though, is when people are praying. I want you to listen for this. People will quote back to God scripture. Like, gracious God, in your word, it says, da, da, da. I'm always like, he wrote the book. He knows. You don't have to tell him.
Tell me something I don't know.
Are you chastised? Are you calling out God for not being patient and kind? Or is it you showing off to me that you know that scripture? And I get lost, and then I judge their prayer, and then I'm just whatever, bad guy.
I feel like when I ask pastors to pray, it's because I know they won't say no.
Oh, yeah.
Because you'll look really bad.
You'll look like a jerk.
You'll look really bad if you have Reverend in front of your name and I ask you to pray and you say, no, I don't want to.
No, I'm not in that place today, unless I can't do that.
Well, I feel free if someone's like, hey, could you pray for us? And be like, no, thanks. I don't like to pray out loud.
I'm not in that channel right now. Yeah. No, we have some people like that on staff who use the I don't like to pray out loud line.
It's me.
I know.
I'm the problem. It's
one
me.
of your coworkers is too. Okay, fine. And even the fact, like,
because I get in my head about it. It's not a prayer for me. Like when I'm praying out loud.
About saying right things or something?
Yes, I'm thinking about what words am I using? And do I sound smart enough? Do I sound faithful enough? Like, does this sound genuine? And I'm getting a little too casual. Do I need to it? And I get in my head about it. And then it doesn't feel like prayer time. It just feels like something to check off the to-do list and move on.
All right, I'm going to tell you this, but don't tell anybody else. So there's a couple meetings that we have like clockwork around here, and they begin with prayer. Mm-hmm. And it's a meeting that is not, it's a task-driven meeting. And what's the very first phrase? Hey, will somebody open us with a prayer? Mm-hmm. And every now and then I'm a little just smart out, like fifth grade Dougie Meyer, and I'm just like, God, you know why we're here? We're really tired. We're really busy. The coffee's hot. Amen. I mean, it just feels very like, was I supposed to like invite God and create this big holy moment, holy space? Probably. But that's not where my head or my heart is. And God, I'm sorry about that. But it sometimes the business of being in the business of church, it feels like we force people into being inauthentic.
And those prayers feel inauthentic to me. Like I'm one of those meetings that I host on Tuesdays, and we always open it with a prayer. And honestly, it's because I feel like I have to. Yeah. Because the times that I haven't, people have said, are we even going to pray over this meeting? And I'm like,
I know.
How about you just go off into a closet and pray by yourself like Jesus told you to, and I'm being really snotty right now. I'm going to cut this part so I sound nice. No,
well, absolutely. No, you need to, because people are going to think she went over the edge.
But it is. No, it's like the business of church of like, you have to start every meeting with a prayer, whether you mean it or not. Yeah. Because if you don't, it's sacrilegious, and this meeting is not blessed and ordained by God. And it just like rattles my brain. Because then it's like the most inauthentic experience. It's just literally something to check off the list.
Yep. Oh man, we suck.
So how does authentic faith show up in our everyday life? What should it look like in our relationships and in our work and how we treat other people?
Well, I think you were on it a little bit ago when you were talking about, does the way you do life exhibit what Paul talks about as fruits of the Spirit? These tendencies of how you deal with humanity. Are you kind to people? Are you generous? Are you thoughtful? Are you responsive? so forth and so on, loving, kind, caring, and do you do it like riding your bike, after you've learned, when you're 20 years old and you've ridden a bike all your life, you just get on it and do it. You don't have to think, push down, drag it down. I think that, so I can't help but think about that. Then I think about one of the conversations we've had a lot of late in Renew is this whole line of default living on purpose, living with a purpose, and especially people who are fighting an addiction are having to reset the default. Mm-hmm. They're having to reset the the influence and power of choice and kind of rewiring their decision-making process. So if you think about the way we do life through that lens, for a long time, when we're formative years, you're growing up, and your behaviors are being checked by somebody, right? Your parents, let's say. Oh, that was a good thing to do today, or oh, don't hit your sister, or you need share your toy. Mm-hmm. So we have this line being created, right? The wiring is being set, and I wonder if then later on into we'll call it more mature living, 30s and 40s and all that. If the wiring has been set to be caring, loving, kind, and all that, I think that's just in your DNA. Not to say your DNA can't go awry, but it isn't in our DNA also some days of being really selfish mm-hmm. and being really isolating and mean and judgmental out of this sense of fear. Yeah, and I think I wonder, can you call it Billy Graham? Or can you call up somebody who has this persona of being the most authentic, faithful person? I find it energizing when they say or write in a book, "Man, I really had a bad day, and here's what I did out of that bad day. I was snippy and judgmental. I was racist. I was this. I was that." Oh, really? So maybe the very way that they are sharing that, is that being authentic?
Yeah. I think that the reason we don't do that is because we're so fearful. I mean, it is, I don't think that it's a surprise to anyone that we do live in a cancel culture and we don't want our one bad moment, our one bad day to define us. Yeah. And there's this fear that if I share this bad thing that I did of I caught myself being bigoted mm-hmm. and I don't want to share that with anyone because I don't want to be labeled as a bigot because I had one moment where I had prejudice towards someone because of the way they looked or the way they dressed or whatever it may be. I don't want to be defined by that.
Yeah, but see, that's again to me the value in living in a community where I want to believe that if you said that to me, I would go, yeah, that's hard. Me too. I've had that day.
So we pretend we don't do it because we don't want to be labeled.
Yeah, out of some kind of fear, societal fear. Whereas if we just said it, man, you wouldn't believe how I da-da-da. I don't think as many people's hair would catch on fire. There might be some.
Yeah.
But, I had that big fear back in my early days about acknowledging my pornography addiction. And I was never supposed to say that out loud. And I did. And to my amazement, even today, the world didn't come crumbling down.
Yeah.
But maybe it did in some people, and they haven't ever talked to me since then. I don't know. I don't have a line to say, oh, where did he go? Where'd she go? What happened? I don't know.
Yeah.
But
I think part of living authentically is you stop caring about how other people are going to react to your authentic self.
Is it not caring, or you just know that you're not responsible?
I think you're not responsible for other people's reactions, and your worth is not defined by other people's reactions. Right. I think so. Maybe saying don't care isn't the right thing because we all care about what other people think of us. It's part of our human nature. Sure. But say, yeah, it hurts my feelings that you think that about me, but I know my worth. And it goes back to what you said of I'm a beloved child of God. Yeah. I know that about myself. And so
It's not like it was an invitation into this hole of bleh, right? That it is, again, and I think a lot of these go back to kind of some of the just generalized traits of authenticity is you can say something, you can judge me, you can do this, you can do that. It doesn't change my truth, doesn't change my authenticity. It is a value statement that you made. Does it feel kind of like my car just got dinged by a door? Mm-hmm. Yeah, but you know what? You live in a big city, your door's always going to get dinged. So, I mean, life goes on, right? And because then again, you check yourself on, I can't live in a way that only focuses on everybody in the world liking me. That's just craziness. That's exhausting.
I mean, speaking of the way people react to us,
yeah.
what's the role of community in building an authentic faith? How can being a part of a church or a faith group or just any community help someone be more real and authentic in their walk?
I think, and maybe this exists in some places. Maybe people who have kind of really gone all in on life groups have experienced this, where permission is given corporately, collectively by the participants to be just honest, and that honesty is respected in the room. It's held in confidence, and it's not, nobody gasps. Nobody says at the end of it, I'm going to put you on my prayer list now. And there's just more of this sense of we're all in this together. You screwed up today, I'm going to screw up tomorrow, and the next day we're both going to pull the wagon down the street to the farmer's market. Just there's this, the phrase just we're all in it together. And maybe as the church, we need to use more examples of people messing up than of people knocking out home runs. And the moment of kind of, Jesus language of redemption. Redemption is being able to say it out loud and somebody go, oh, okay, me too. Mm-hmm. I think that, not to just, this isn't a commercial for AA or recovery, but so like when people check in recovery groups, they go around the circle, hey, I'm da-da-da, I'm an alcoholic. Everybody goes, hey, Doug. And at ours, we have a couple minute high-low. Hey, you want to celebrate? Do you feel the need to acknowledge, man, here's where I really, missed the mark. And that person says it, and a couple other people will go, still love you. Mm-hmm. And you go on. Yeah.
I think it's the ability to see past what the person is saying and see into who they are. Mm-hmm. And because we screw up all the time with our words, right? But I think that we understand what the person is feeling,
right?
Being able to empathize with what they're experiencing.
So, just my being authentic doesn't give me permission to use words that wound.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I think sometimes we've heard phrases say, well, I'm just being honest.
I'm just being myself.
I'm just being myself.
Yeah.
And we flip it to where what I'm saying,
I'm
and if it
victim,
offends, it's your fault.
Me.
Yeah, come on, get
and
over
I'm
it.
just trying to be myself and be authentic.
Well, in a line that was said this week politically about a place being a garbage dump, the spin the next day was, come on, people, have a sense of humor.
That's gaslighting.
So it's, I'm going to change history by saying you didn't get it the way I meant to, and you and I both know it was said the way it was meant to be said. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, what are some questions that each of us should ask ourselves to test that we are being genuine and authentic in our faith?
So I actually did a little homework on this one, and I'm going to read them, and then we'll play with them and make them better. What am I trying to prove or show right now by what I'm doing? Maybe... I don't know. We need to give people Christian authentic flashcards. What outcome am I expecting or trying to create? Do you see me? Are you affirming me? Where is my gold star? Mm-hmm. So I think if we, the other word that comes to mind is motivation, right? What's my, if we could self-check quick enough to go, what is my motivation right now in this moment to do that which I'm about to do? Mm-hmm. Is it just to do it? I think especially in line of our conversation earlier about do what you want, do what you're planning on doing, but don't tell anybody. Don't social media it. Don't share it at this or that. Just do it. Somewhere over time, would those questions become a part of your, like I'm thinking of digestion. If we self-check enough, does it just become a part of the way we go about living? Like I don't have to ask myself, kind of like driving. I mean, there's some things you remember at the very beginning that after a while you just automatically do, probably because somewhere way back in the day you were told that's what you're supposed to do. But over time it's just rote. Can these questions be rote enough that, hey, this isn't about performative faith. This is just about me, being a good guy. Trying to do some of the things Jesus said to, And I think it's hardest when there's emotion involved, especially if it's a trigger emotion, if anger or fear is involved, because those seem to override the next DNA switch of, wait a minute, be thoughtful.
Oh, for me, one of the most triggering emotions is embarrassment.
Oh, yeah.
What's the next thing I'm doing when I feel embarrassed? And it's usually something defensive and horrible and completely inauthentic to what I'm actually feeling. Something to just get the, embarrassment feeling off of me and spotlight put onto someone else or somewhere else.
Oh, yeah. No, you're not alone. Mine is either like a kind of an anger flash. Or like when something happens like that, you get this flush of heat feeling. Or others, like if it's a compliment, because I don't know how to take a compliment, I cast it back. It's almost like I literally use my hand and repel, like, oh, okay, well, that was sweet. But rather than just accepting it and going, that was a really nice thing to say. I try to talk the person out of, oh, you don't really know me that well.
Yeah, if you knew me,
if you really
wouldn't
knew
be
me,
giving me this
my God,
compliment.
you'd take that back in a heartbeat. Yeah. But I think it's just self-checking. I think at the end of the day, that's a lot about life. Life comes down to just a series of self-checks. What am I doing? Why am I doing it? What would happen if I didn't do it? What would happen? Would I do it differently that I knew there was an audience watching me?
Yeah. Well, for you, like how do you ground yourself in authentic faith as a pastor? Because I'm guessing that you're in a whole different kind of pressure cooker as a pastor with all eyes on you, trying to make sure. And I know that this has been a huge part of your journey is like being able to depressurize, I guess, situations. But how do you stay grounded and not crumble under that pressure of like perfect Christian?
Well, when the stars are aligned in a good way, I do it by just being honest in the moment. And I will say a little bit of a disclaimer. Like sometimes if I'm leading a study or something, I will say this little phrase like, hey, what I'm about to say might sound uncomfortable to you, but this is where I'm at in my faith at the moment. I can remember to the day and the moment when I was in this study and somebody was talking about heaven, and they had that assuredness that I told you earlier repels me. And for some reason we were talking, and it came like I felt sometimes, and not so much anymore. Like I used to feel like the pastor had to have the right answer, and it came to me, and I just said, I'm really not sure. I hope there's something, because a lot of Christian faith is prompted by this promise of afterlife. Well, okay, you take that away, so you're not going to be Christian if you're not getting to go to heaven. How about if you just do it because that's really the right way to live? But so I said that in a group, and the fears I have of underperforming most often have been met with, oh, okay. It's a much bigger gasp in my head than it is. I only had one person who kind of just really was like, I can't, there's a kind of a little judgmental phrase of, I can't believe you said that. Or, like what kind of pastor are you is what I heard. Mine is more, this is going to sound silly. So like in worship, when you're in worship here, we sit on the front row Everybody can see you. And by the time, 11:30 comes, you've heard that sermon 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a ADD squirrel brain. And how do I fake looking interested? And I of late have been doodling. I just take a little pad in there, and
so it looks like you're taking vigorous notes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's become my out. Somebody came up to me Sunday, a guy in the church that knows me well enough to call me out, and goes, "Man, were you writing down everything Daniel said?" It's like, no, my squirrel brain had kicked in. But it's a challenge,
Well, you've taught me a thing or two about authenticity, because you have called me out before, and you may not even remember this, but it really stuck with me. And like, I want to be more like this.
Yeah.
So there was a time, I don't even remember what the situation was. I guess you did something that upset me. And rather than coming directly to you, I vented to someone else. And then that person went to you. And I didn't know that. And you called me and said, "Hey, Alyssa, this person came to me and said this. Are you upset about something?" And I was like, "Well, not so much anymore. I was just kind of venting, and I'm sorry about that. But yeah, this is what needed to happen." And you said, and it really stuck with me, you said, "I just thought that we were close enough that you'd feel like you could come to me." And that really hit me, because I was like, yeah, we are. Like, why didn't I just come straight to you and say, "Hey, this is bothering me"?
Right.
And I think that there's this like fear of, well, I don't want to upset you. I don't want to, put a riff in our friendship.
Right.
I don't want to. And so, but by going to someone else instead of going straight to you,
what we
I
didn't
did
mean to do.
exactly that.
Yeah,
It's like Final Destination. And when you did that for me, I'm like, that's the kind of leader I want to be. I want to be the person who goes direct to the source and says, "Hey, let's work through this. We're having a little trouble right now."
Well, I appreciate that, because I think we do that in relationships we value. When we we have investment in, right? If it's somebody that's not, I've done my share of gossiping behind the scenes, and it's generally never made the situation better.
No.
I don't know one time when it's like, "Oh man, I'm so glad I got that off my chest because it solved it all."
Yeah.
Usually I feel then this weight of conviction. It's like, why did I just do that? I need to do better.
Yeah.
But I will say that, like, person-to-person confrontation, which even that word, like, I don't think that's a confrontation. I think I should take the power out of that and just say, that's a friend being honest with a friend.
Yeah.
Right? And friends can handle that, I think. I hope that is true, right? It's when you don't know a person, maybe, or I don't know a person, that I am more anxious. I have not seen a track record of their response when somebody else has said something hard.
Yeah.
But no. Well, thank you for that. I get that. And that's, I think, to me, those are like exercises in authenticity. Whenever we can lean into a moment that's like,
just diffuse it, be honest, and you can be honest and kind. Like, I'm so tired of like people who are like, "Well, I'm brutally honest." You don't have to be brutal.
Right.
You can just be honest, and you can also be kind and compassionate and empathetic towards the other person.
That's a good word. I think you're right. There are words that we think don't go together: kind and honest. You can be an honestly kind person. You can do that. Yes, you can. But you're just using, like, a lot of times I think we're just lazy. And we're going to let this caveman mindset overpower our sense of just be civil, just be polite. And I think we see that in the culture of politics all the time. People are just, because somehow, somewhere, somebody told them, "Oh, that gets attention," or "that sells," or "that gets a vote," or something like that. We're a mess.
I appreciate you bringing us a lesson or two on authenticity, and
well, this was fun.
More to come, I'm sure.
Yeah. No, I think this has the makings of kind of a really good, I don't know what, reflection group, wine group, conversation, because it is the stuff of which I think we all need to self-check really regularly.
Yeah. Because it is so easy to get caught up in ego and to be driven by it and not even, like, you don't even realize that it's happening.
Oh, no. By the time you realize it, it's the next week. I mean, it's gone past you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I agree. This somehow needs to be like a value. Oh, I think I just ruined it. Like if you make it a relationship value with people you work with, you know, that's for another day. But how do you enforce authenticity? How do you create that as the standard?
Enforce authenticity.
I
We're going
know.
to police your authenticity.
With blood test and
Yeah.
urine analysis. Well, this was fun.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. The Life Plus God podcast is hosted, written, and produced by me, Alyssa Robinson, and sponsored by Trietsch Memorial United Methodist Church in Flower Mound, Texas. Check out Trietsch online at tmumc.org or in person to see if this church is a right fit for you and your family. We'd love for you to visit us soon. And if you like the podcast, don't forget to subscribe and rate us on your podcast platform to help other people find our content. Join us next week and let's keep growing in relationship with Christ together.